And unto all parties herein, I, Arcadia Gannon, hereby release the foundation from liability in the event of my death, decapitation, and or dismemberment. Well, that's Darkly by Marisha Pessl for you. It was a pretty cool read, let me tell you. This is her fourth novel, her first being Special Topics in Calamity Physics. Have not read it yet, but it's right here. Night Film, which is also right here, and I have reviewed the Nevermore World, which I don't have and haven't read yet, and Darkly, her most recent publication. Darkly is the story of Arcadia Gannon, who is a big fan of board games, specifically those created by Louisiana Veda, who is this master game creator, renowned worldwide for many of her works. The story takes place 40 years after her death, when one of her games was stolen and played, and the person who played it went missing. So, Arcadia and 6 other people around the world, they're all young adults / teenagers, by the way, are hired for an internship by the foundation that manages Louisiana Veda's estate, and they are mysteriously hired to find out essentially what happened to this kid. Now, how did they get hired? Well, they had to fill out a form and answer the question, what would you kill for? This is a very cool adventure book. It's dark, it's mysterious, it has many twists and turns, and a very cool, I don't know if it's a plot twist, but a very cool reveal, at least, that I personally didn't really see coming. What I really like about Marisha Pessl's writing, as someone who's read another one of her books, is that you can really feel her style. She really takes ownership of the story and the vibe, and it's very, I think she's one of those authors where if you decide you like her style, you can be assured that it will be present in 100% of her books. I've read 50% of them and I found it. So though I am raving about this book and I think it was awesome and I loved every second of reading it, well, actually, the first thing is, I think it's a little bit slow, maybe hard to get into in the beginning. However, once you're in it, I really could not put it down, let me tell you. The occasions on which I just want to stop what I'm doing and read the book cover to cover are rare, and this was one of them. Or at least page 50 to cover, or something like that. Although I think it's fairly common with many books. I think, it does take a little bit of time to set the story, set the mood, introduce the main characters, and then before you can really, get on with it. So, a minor detail. One thing I think I would have done differently is Arcadia Gannon's personality, the main character. She is supposedly from the middle of nowhere, United States. Her mother is some nobody antique store shopkeeper owner, and she is presented as this very shy, insecure, quirky personality type of teenager. She is presented as being really good at deciphering puzzles, and I don't want to say playing games, but she's like a big fan of Louisiana Veda's games, and supposedly she's good at finding the details and putting 2 and 2 together. So that's fine. It's just there are random bursts of non-Arcadianness, if that makes sense, where she all of a sudden takes charge and is the boss woman of the universe, and then she has moments of ooh, oh my gosh, I got so insecure and blah blah blah, which, I admittedly every secure woman feels insecure. That's not the point, but it's just, I don't know, there were a little bit of inconsistencies in her personality that weren't necessarily warranted. Bursts of security or insecurity or decisiveness. Well, it's not security, it's a decisiveness. And there's nothing about the situation that warrants her having a burst of decisiveness. There is Shouldn't start with the end. There is the same kind of structure as there was in Night Film, where, you know, as you go, there are little clues like letters, and yeah, it's very cool. I love this format. I like when there are little things that make you, you know, take your book and read and look and manhandle the piece of work. Before we get into spoiler territory, I will say one last thing. There were a lot of elements about this book that were really confusing. Now, did it take away from the enjoyment of the story? A little bit, not too much. I think it's a lot of the confusion, and sorry I can't say more because then it would be a little spoilery, and I'll get back into it in the spoilery section, but I think it's one of those moments where you can read between the lines and from context understand what is happening. However, I do think that a lot of the events, I will say games, or the situation in which the games take place was quite confusing to me. Okay. Read the book and meet me in the spoilery section. I thought it was kind of comical. I'm saying this as someone who's read this one and Night Film, and I can't help but compare the two stories. I thought it was quite interesting to see how many similarities there were between both main characters. Well, it's not really the main characters, but man, there has to be a word for this, where it's not the villain, it's not the main character, it's like the point of interest, or the character that drives the story but isn't actually physically there. Oh man, let me know if there's a name for that. That would be interesting. There were quite a few times during this story where I was pretty confused, actually, when Dia goes to play the game. Well, when all of them go to play the game, I didn't really understand at first if it was some type of hallucination, or like, supposedly they're on an island in the middle of nowhere and they have to take a boat ride, and then all of a sudden they get summoned, like, oh, you have to play the game, and then all of a sudden you're in it, and I'm just like, what's happening? Did you get blindfolded and taken on the boat ride to some facility where all the actors are? You know, I didn't really put two and two together until I read the passage at the beginning of this video, but Neil Raymond, he's pretty confusing. I mean, if you look at this whole contract of like, don't be dismembered or decapitated or whatever, and then he keeps pretending like, oh no, we're just trying to keep you safe and blah 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 blah. It seems to me like there were a lot of added elements of confusion that maybe didn't really need to be there, specifically coming from the firm or the estate house or whatever you want to call it. Specifically, I'm thinking of Neil Raymond and the way he doesn't really allow the kids to kind of investigate, like go to Louisiana Veda's house on the where they find the library and everything else. The way he yells at them for being in danger, like I think it was Mouse who got locked in the mausoleum or something. Was it Mouse or someone else? I enjoyed the added spookiness for the atmosphere, but I do think that a lot of it not a lot of it, but some of it certainly was a bit unnecessary. I think if I personally was Neil Raymond or the lawyer guy, I think I would have put the kids on some estate that was perhaps not on a haunted island, well, not haunted island, but on an island with a super dangerous and creepy factory, and then be like, you can't go there, or be pissed when they go there. Like, it's just giving perhaps not super thought out mixed signals. I mean, if you think about it, ultimately the firm's two goals would be to A, find Louisiana's descendant, and B, find who stole the game and get it back so they don't lose money, right? So if I were them, I would have found all 6 interns and then put them in a house that's physically closer, like a hotel, maybe some estate that belongs to the firm or something, or rent it out or something, I don't know. And then since they needed the DNA, wouldn't it have been so much easier to have them on mainland and say, all right, go visit the factory today, and then ship them off, and then, you know, take their toothbrushes while they're actually out and not in the middle of the night or something. Also, like, how hard is it to take a toothbrush, swipe it with a cotton or something, and then just put it back? Like, I don't understand how they mixed up the toothbrushes. Like, that was kind of weird, but okay. Overall, I think one of my biggest regrets about this book was not understanding the game of Valkyrie as much as I would have liked. I wish we had a drawing of the board game. You know, there's a lot of them saying, okay, we played round 1, now let's get together and, you know, talk about what we found, what did we see on the board game, what did we spin, etc. I also think that's one of those moments where we could have spent perhaps a little bit more time inside of Dia's head as she's figuring out that, you know, the Valkyrie game is kind of a representation, or like an autobiography, if you will. That's a really cool concept, an autobiography in the game. Love it. I wish we had spent more time in her head and, you know, connecting the dots, really. And I think it would have also been a little bit more realistic if some of the other characters were also getting closer to figuring out the story. I mean, supposedly they're all, you know, qualified for this. I mean, I know they're qualified because of their DNA, potentially. By the way, I gotta say, what a plot convenience that Louisiana Veda's grandchild should be a big fan and actually apply for this internship. The mother of all plot conveniences as it unfolds on page 1. I think perhaps that is the one detail that should be changed about this story. Perhaps find a better reason or a better train of thought from the Foundation's part to actually locate Louisiana's descendant. I gotta know, did you see any other plot holes or anything? I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!